Sup, it's Sora, welcome back to my channel, and like I promised in the last video, I'm here to give my thoughts on whether Xiao and or Yae Miko are worth pulling in the current state of the meta. So, let's just get right into it. Let's start with Xiao. Now, Xiao has had quite a tumultuous run when it comes to his relevance and how strong he is. When he first came out, he was like the coming of God. And then eventually more units came out, and around like, by the end of 2.0, he was almost, I don't want to say irrelevant, but he was just barely hanging on by a thread. Things were so bad that one of his best supports was a C4 standard banner unit, which is nearly impossible to get without ridiculous luck. Please don't. Long story short, things have changed. We now have Farina, who buffs your damage ridiculously when your HP changes, and Xiao drains his own HP in his burst, so these two have fantastic synergy. On top of that, Farazan got released, and she just lifted the ceiling of Animo teams right along with her, especially at C6. Tenacity, Favonius, she's really good. And then Xian Yun, who's the latest 5-star to come out, she's an Animo unit, so she can battery Xiao as well as Farazan. But also, she's a healer. She'll be able to heal Xiao's HP drain along with Farina's HP drain, while helping generate fanfare stacks and giving a plunged attack buff based on her own attack, which it calculates differently, but it basically just leads to way more damage. And when you combine these three units, you get a ridiculously strong Xiao team. So, if you have Farina, if you have Farazan, now, people like to talk 300% energy recharge Farazan. I don't know what teams they were using her in. I was using C5 Farazan for a while. I'm sorry, C4. I was using C4 Farazan for months. That was as far as I got on her initial banner. Well, up until that point. Long story short, I was running around like 200 to 20% ER on her and was bursting every off cooldown. No problem. So, I don't know about that. If you don't have C6 Farazan, she's still good. If you do, that's even more of a reason to pull Xiao. If you also have Xian Yun, that's even more of a reason to pull Xiao. So if you have these three units, Xiao could definitely be a great addition to your team. The main problem is that, again, he's a hyper carry, and hyper carries are just very replaceable. For instance, I could literally just put Scaramouche in his spot in this team, and it still performs really well. Of course, Scaramouche doesn't take advantage of the plunged attack bonus, but I actually tested my Scaramouche at least, and even with Bennett, it could be a difference in Widsith buffs, so I could be inaccurate, but I found that for me, Xian Yun was his best like 4th slot. Regardless, if you like Xiao, you have these units, definitely could be a good idea. We're going to get more units in the future, more DPS characters that are probably gonna eventually, power creep him. We might get another Animo DPS somehow. That just, seals the deal. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind, but I'd say he's a pretty good pull. Something to keep in mind though, is that he does have a very straightforward playstyle, and that you just spam plunged attacks. And while I do enjoy the fact that his teams feel stronger now, and they actually do damage, not saying like that, but, it does feel more fun. But for me personally, just up and down, I don't know. And I mean, I don't know. It's just not that engaging to me. Are you okay?
Those memories. So dark.
Um, Before we move on to Yae Miko, constellations, I have a C0 Xiao. Just know that he probably has the worst constellation lineup in the game. His constellations are so bad that his C6 just breaks his playstyle, because you basically stop plunging as much and just start spamming your E. And since when was he an E-bot? And then at that point, guess what? All the levels you put into his normal attack basically don't matter. And if you are someone who didn't level his E, because it kind of really doesn't matter, now you're gonna have to. But yeah, pull him if you want him. He is really strong, especially if you have these units. If you don't, I wouldn't do it. But you can make him work with like Bennett, Zhongli, Yelan. Like there's alternatives. Now for Yae Miko. I don't know how to feel about her. I feel like there's been too many times where I don't know, like she's doing like no damage, but then like sometimes she does. So like I don't know. I don't know. Could be Widsith diff. I do use Widsith on her. Currently I have a Solar Pearl, so actually there's no excuse. So I don't know. This is the build I run on her. There we go. 82, 158. And it cleared 12-3. That's just if you watch the last video. Spoilers. She cleared 12-3, but barely missed the other two chambers. I kind of chalked it up as Weenut and Ruin Serpent diff, but if she did a little more damage, But anyways, Yae Miko is an Electro off-field unit, so she is pretty flexible in her teams. You can run her in Taser, which isn't as strong these days, but it's still a lot of fun and one of my favorite teams. You can run her in Aggravate as the carry for the team. She can be an off-field, just damage dealer while someone else carries, like Raiden. You can pair her with Fischl and have another off-field, on-fielder, do on-field Nahida. She's great in spread teams, Tainari teams, since he's so quick swappy, those two work really harmoniously together. The only downside, at least her major downside I'd say, is energy requirements. Even though her burst, like, you don't really want to burst every rotation, but I don't know, it just feels bad to me when you swap back to a character constantly and their burst just isn't ready. And then secondly, it's the EEE. It just takes so much time. At the start of a fight, you start the chamber, you have to 1, 2, 3. Under normal circumstances, Fischl E, start your swirl, you can just get your setup going. Yae Miko, you have to E, and then you have to be careful of how far you're placing your totems away. And if you're fighting an enemy that's very mobile, you might find yourself in a situation like this that still reaches. Well, yeah, of course that was gonna reach, idiot. Right here. You might find yourself in a situation like this where, and especially if you just put those down, your E's are on cooldown, well, you're doing no damage. So it can be very situational. However, she does have some range to her E's. Right now. Yeah. Right here. A little too far. Oh, I keep messing it up. Anyways, I don't know. Something personally to me feels off, but if we're talking utility-wise, again, you can run her in Taser. You can really run her in, like, physical if you wanted to that bad. She is an Electro unit. Good luck, but it is technically an option. Chevrus came out. You can use her in Overload teams. You can use her in Aggravate teams, Spread teams. She works really well for Hyper Bloom, especially if you're using her as an on-fielder. And it makes building her a lot easier. You just have to level her up, dump a bunch of EM on her, and you're done. So I'd say for her flexibility, she might be a really good pull for a lot of accounts. Mainly if you need that electro damage kind of slot filled. If you have someone like Raiden and Yae aren't really comparable. and that's kind of why I don't want to draw that comparison. But in a lot of teams where you could put Yae, you could also just put Ryan on fielder. But also, there's Fischl, and if you have a really well-built Fischl, it kind of decreases Yae's pull value. But at the end of the day, she still does damage. If you build yours better than mine, you can get some good damage. Her constellations are complete bait, so just don't worry about them. She's definitely in the best state she's ever been in, and so for that, I personally say she's a pretty good pull. I think she would be worth it. Possibly. I personally don't use her that often, mostly because I'm just not a big fan of her playstyle. Something about just putting down the totems and leaving the field feels a little unimpactful. I don't know how to describe it, because there's characters like Fischl who actually enjoy playing even though it's just a bird. But like, I don't know. I suppose while we're at it, we can talk about constellations for the 4 stars. Xiao, if you didn't have her, we did just have Lantern Right, you could have obtained a free copy of her. If you didn't get her and you don't have her, she is a pretty good unit. She's Dendro, she's a healer. A Dendro healer is a pretty relevant spot to be filled, especially for someone like me who doesn't have Baiju. With that being said, her constellations aren't that good. So, oof. Ningguang, if you have Navia, she's a great partner for Navia. Outside of that, she's not that good. But if you like Ningguang that much, if you really want to use her, her C6 is incredibly relevant. So it's kind of like she's not that good, but if you really want to just prove everyone wrong, she's a really constellation dependent unit. And then there's Xinyan, whose constellations also aren't that good, and she doesn't really have any relevant teams. With the release of Xianyun, you can now use her as a Pyro Plunge vape, carry, but that same can be said for every melee character with the C6 Bennett, so that's not saying very much. So as far as the 4 stars on the banner goes, if you really did want Xiao or Yae Miko, I'm so sorry for you. Weapons, Kagura's Verity, it's a stat stick, but it's only really good on Yae Miko, Lisa. Why do I feel like there's like one other person? Oh, I think it might actually be decent on, I almost said Farina. Idiot. Pretty sure it's just her and Lisa. It is a stat stick, so, there's that. And then Primordial Jade Wing Spear, I would never roll for it on a banner because it's a standard weapon. If you're that interested in pulling weapons, you might get this eventually. And if you really want a good weapon for Xiao, wait until a Hu Tao rerun, wait until a Sino rerun. I don't know. So, those are my thoughts on both Xiao and Yae Miko's pull values, as well as the relevance of the 4 stars on the banner. Overall, TLDR, they're both really good nowadays. Xiao really only has one team. That's a big crutch for him. If you want to use him, you're kind of always just going to run that team. Yae Miko's more flexible on the other hand, so I feel like she's probably the better pull than Xiao. But if you have the pieces to make Xiao work, Xiao definitely can be worth it. And yeah, if you enjoy videos like these, to let me know so I know to continue making content that you enjoy. Subscribe because it helps support the channel, and have a great day.